Thank you everyone for listening to the story on the channel Good Stories Audio. Chapter 26. Solicit. Call out. The sound of breaking the sky, a figure suddenly appeared in front of the two. When they saw the coming people, it was Long Zhu. At this moment, one of his eyes was full of excitement. Who was the formation just now? Ah, yes. The two looked at each other, and finally Long Jian told, "It's Luo's butler, Zhuo Fan." "What, is he?" Long Zhu couldn't help being surprised. When he turned to look at the surrounding formations, he was more and more shocked. But everyone in the formations not only knows each formation very well, but also needs to practice through many years to realize the trick. The old age can only be arranged with a 3-level formation. How can he instantly arrange a 5-level formation at his young age? Long Zhu seemed to be asking Long Kui and Long Jie, and he seemed to be talking to himself. Seeing this, the two laughed bitterly and shook their heads. This extraordinary person does not know who it is, and from time to time, he will do some earth-shattering things that make you have to be convinced. Even the children of these two families, after seeing Zhuo Fan reveal such a hand today, they no longer dare to underestimate him, even vaguely feel ashamed. "You go to call the boy." "Oh no, yes, please, the old man wants to have a good talk with him." Looking around for a while, Long Zhu suddenly grinned. After hearing the two, they clenched their fists and led their lives. After a while, Long Zhu made a pot of tea and placed it on the stone table in a pavilion in the backyard of the small courtyard. However, after a while, Zhuo Fan, Long Kui, and Long Jie came here. "Ha ha ha. Brother Zhuo Fan, please sit down." Upon meeting, Long Zhu laughed and made a gesture of invitation. Long Kui and Long Jie couldn't help but stunned. "Brother Zhuo Fan?" Long Zhu is very senior in the family. When they meet, they must be honored as Zhu Shu, and Long Zhu is extremely proud. There are not many people in Tianyu Empire who can be seen by him. But now that Zhuo Fan is called the young kid, he can't help but be surprised. But Zhuo Fan didn't care, and he readily agreed, and he sat down with a sword. In his view, this is a world of strength. As long as he is strong enough, let alone being an old man's brother, even being his grandfather is more than enough. "I don't know if Brother Zhu came to me, what's the matter?" Zhuo Fan was unrestrained. He immediately picked up the teapot and poured himself a cup, and shamelessly responded to the name of the brother who was just Dragon Zhu. Long Jie stunned, it seemed that he hadn't reacted yet. However, Long Kui rolled his eyes and scolded shamelessly, and the kid would really climb up the pole. But Long Zhu heard it but was overjoyed. Because of this, the relationship between the two is closer, and they can talk better. "Brother Zhuo Fan, since you have called me Brother Nine, then the brother will not turn around. Let me tell you the truth, brother, you can put up a 5-level formation. In this small family. Why not come to our Qianlong pavilion? My brother guarantees that you have the treatment of worship. Even if the owner sees you, he will be polite to you." Startled, Long Kui and Long Jie glanced at each other. They never imagined that Long Zhu was so eager to find Zhuo Fan to actually ask him to be a worshipper of Qianlong Pavilion. That is the highest treatment of Qianlong Pavilion, with its status above the elders, and the strongest strength to guard Qianlong Pavilion. How can he be a heavy-duty yellow-haired kid? But think again, although Zhuo Fan's strength is only gathering atmosphere, but he is a 5th-level formation division. If any of the 7th family members go back, they will be treated as offerings. Long Zhu invited him back, it is the greatest benefit to Qianlong Pavilion. With a slight smile, Zhuo Fan did not speak and took a sip of tea. In fact, before he came, he knew the intention of Long Zhu. Who can lay out 5-tier formations, who won't rob, And who won't rob in this empire? Even if he met the emperor would also sergeant him. So when he shot out, he had already expected this result. Brother Zhuo Fan, what do you think? Long Zhu asked again, after seeing Zhuo Fan never answering. With a sharp corner of his mouth, Zhuo Fan said lightly, I'll mention some conditions, no problem. Of course, no problem, as long as Qianlong Pavilion can do it, you can mention anything. Long Zhu waved his hand, and the pride was dry and authentic. Then I asked her to bring me tea and water, and wash my feet, and warm the blankets. Zhuo Fan pointed to Longan and laughed. Hearing this, Long Kui's cheeks were flushed suddenly, his eyes glared, and he said angrily, dream. Long Zhu also shook his head embarrassedly, Xiaokui. Can't. Haha. I'm just kidding. There is already a big lady at home, do you want to add another one? A loud laugh, Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed in a flash, suddenly serious, I want Brother Luo. Life is safe. Zhuo Fan said this word by word, very sincerely. Long Zhu couldn't help but stunned, then there was admiration on his face. He never imagined that Zhuo Fan's condition was not for himself, but for the Luo family. With such loyalty, the three present could not help raising a little respect. Even the nightshade, who had always been angry with him, gave him a deep look after hearing this remark. Okay, I promise you. Long Zhu Zheng focused on his head. As long as there is Qianlong Pavilion, the Luo family will not only be safe forever, but all children and grandchildren will be safe forever, you can rest assured. Nodding with a smile, Zhuo Fan picked up the teacup and took a sip of fragrant tea. So from now on, you are the offering of our Qianlong Pavilion. I will tell your family about your affairs, and 3 days later I will ask Jie to send you to the family headquarters. And many more. Suddenly, Zhuo Fan waved his hand and said, I didn't promise anything to be worshipped. What, you weren't just. Suddenly, Long Zhu stood up and looked at Zhuo Fan with an angry face. Brother Zhuo, were you just playing with the old man? With a chuckle, Zhuo Fan suddenly looked at him with a serious face. If you ask me an invitation before a quarter of an hour, I will agree without hesitation. And the condition is what I mentioned just now, but now? What's wrong now? Long Zhu shuddered and asked. Shaking his head slightly, Zhuo Fan turned his head to look at the face of Long Kuai and said coldly, Miss Long Kuai, remember what you said before. With that said, Zhuo Fan extended a fist. 10 years later, I let the Luo family stand above the 7th family. As soon as the words fell, Zhuo Fan drank the tea from the cup, fell on the table with a touch, and turned away. Looking at his back, Long Kui had an inexplicable shock in his heart. In 10 years, it would be impossible for a small family to surpass the imperial family Vai. Even if he is a 5th level formation division, it is absolutely impossible that the heritage of the 7th family will not be so easily surpassed. However, Zhuo Fan said so confidently that she could not refute any words. Xiao Kui, what did you just tell him? Long Zhu looked puzzled and looked at the two. Because from Zhuo Fan's face, it was by no means unreasonable for him to make trouble, just what happened must have made him so angry. Long Kui did not speak, but watched Zhuo Fan's back disappear. Long Jie hesitated for a while, and told the previous things again. After hearing the whole story, Long Zhu shook his head helplessly and sighed. The old man told you long ago that he doesn't slap anyone's face or curse others. You humiliate the Luo family so much, it's no wonder people have shown it to you. But he just said, there can never be a success. Long Jie hesitated and murmured. Touching his beard, Long Zhu turned around with one eye in his eyes. The Luo family has a 5th level array teacher sitting in the town. Even if they can't keep up with the reputation of the 7th family in the future, they must be the best in the secular family, or they should make friends. Ah, you guys, we can almost invite a 5th level formation teacher to worship. Long Zhu sighed, staring at Long Kui, and shook his head. On the other hand, Zhuo Fan left Long Zhu and went straight to Luo Yunsheng. Along the way, many thoughts. What a great opportunity to shelter the Luo family in the Qianlong Pavilion, so that the Luo family is stable and his demons can be unlocked. However, he gave up only because of Long Kui's words. Daydreaming? Ha, if you can't even dream, you can only rest your destiny. Devil's way, go against the sky, all fate is fought out by oneself. Therefore, Zhuo Fan sees no one saying anything, daydreaming, being destined, and delusional. Therefore, he must prove to everyone that even a small family with a long and persistent breath can have a day on the summit. At this moment, he helped the Luo family no longer to remove the demon, but to his devil's path. Nothing is impossible in this world. If the sky hinders me, kill it against the sky. One day, he will make this desolate family the strongest family in the world. As long as his demon emperor Zhuo Yifan is present, nothing is impossible. Bump! With a loud noise, Zhuo Fan pushed the door in, his face full of anger. Luo Yunsheng, Luo Yunhai, and Pang Commander are all here, and he was shocked to see him come in. It seems that he guessed something. Luo Yunsheng looked a little hesitant, but he still encouraged the courage and said, Zhuo Fan, what's wrong with you? He asked me to worship Qianlong Pavilion. Zhuo Fan said lightly. Hearing this, Luo Yunsheng did not feel dark on all 3 faces. Despite the misery in his heart, Luo Yunsheng still smiled. Congratulations, Qianlong Pavilion is not comparable to the Luo family. You must have a better future there. In fact, they had long thought that Zhuo Fanbu's 5-level formation would inevitably attract people from the 7th family. Talents like Zhuo Fan are not something they can keep with the Luo family. Looking at their sad faces, Zhuo Fan snorted softly, sigh, I refused. What? Everyone was surprised when they heard this, but there was more joy in their hearts. Why? There's no reason, I'm back to the room. Without answering them, Zhuo Fan turned away, but just paused before disappearing, and said coldly, Miss, the Luo family will let me take care of all major and minor matters, don't intervene. Luo Yunsheng froze, nodded dumbly. Wasn't that the same before? Why did he suddenly say this to her today? Immediately afterward, Zhuo Fan's voice came again, as if to speak to herself, as if to her. From now on, I will be the big housekeeper of the Luo family. Within 10 years, I will let the Luo family surpass Qianlong Pavilion. As soon as the words fell, Zhuo Fan disappeared, leaving only Luo Yunsheng and 3 people stunned in the local area. Chapter 27. Catch a thief. Within 10 days, Zhuo Fan's figure was no longer visible in the small courtyard of Qianlong Pavilion. Not only Long Kui, but also the Luo family rarely met him. After uttering brave words to everyone that day, Zhuo Fan worked harder and locked himself in the room, and no one was there. Only in the middle of the night will he let the bleeding baby go to the power of the strong. The goal is the Kai family. So for the past 10 days, Kai Rong, the head of the Kai family, was quite depressed. Their guards were decreasing every day, and his bones were still gone. This made him wonder if he had offended the Luo family. The Luo family invited Qianlong Pavilion to deal with them. Because in his view, only the imperial family of 7th generation had such a terrifying strength, and the guards of his family were wiped out one by one without knowing it. To this end, Kai Rong has been worried, especially late at night. He shrank with his son shivering in the bed. I am afraid that the next one to disappear is myself. Life is alive, death is not terrible. What is terrible is waiting for the moment of death. Now the father and son of the Kai family are living in such horrible waiting. Once upon a time, he also thought to ask Nether Valley to come forward and save their lives. However, after obtaining the ancestral martial arts of their family, Nether Valley changed its attitude drastically, regardless of their life and death. This could not help Kai Rong hiding in the door and scolding loudly. The magic road was indeed unreliable, but it was helpless. Zhuo Fan looked at all these things, sneering in his heart. As for the Sun family, Zhuo Fan once let the blood babies go there several times, but after all, they had an elder Jane stationed there, and he was almost found by him several times. Especially in recent days, there have been several strong momentums, so Zhuo Fan will not go. Just let the blood babies monitor at the door and they came back. On this day, as usual, the blood babies had absorbed the vitality of the dozen guards of the Kai family, and after going around the Sun family for a circle, they flew back to Qianlong Pavilion with satisfaction. However, just as it was about to enter the courtyard, an imperceptible breath caught his eyes. Zhuo Fan, who meditated in the room, frowned, instructing the blood infant to look for the hidden breath. Soon, in a corner directly opposite the courtyard, a man in black caught his eyes. Seeing the direction the man was looking at was the location of this small courtyard. Well, no one dares to monitor the site of Qianlong Pavilion. This guy is here to step on it. It seems that the people of Haifeng Mountain have arrived. Zhuo Fan's mouth twitched and murmured. He still remembers overhearing the contents of Elder Jane's conversation. This time, the Luo family did not shoot the Kai family or the Sun family, but the Hefengshan thief who seemed to have nothing to do with everyone. In this way, even if their Luo family was destroyed by Haifeng Mountain, it had nothing to do with Nether Valley. But, how do a group of thieves enter this small courtyard of Qianlong Pavilion? Are you going to Yunzuang at this time? Brow slightly raised, Zhuo Fan instructed the blood infant to quietly attach behind the man in black. Because the breath of the blood infant was so secret, the man didn't find it at all. After observing for a while, the man seemed to have a general understanding of the situation and turned away. Behind him, a red blood baby has been hanging. It wasn't until half an hour later, when the man in black came to an inn, the blood baby was quiet away. Ah! The man in black jumped up and turned into a window, while the blood infant fluttered lightly into the window and looked inward. I saw 6 or 7 big men in it, and a 16 or 7-year-old girl stood aside, and everyone looked at the man in black, waiting for his command. Miss, how is the exploration place? The man in black hadn't spoken yet. The little girl handed a cup of tea and cared. Zhuo Fan heard it, couldn't help but stunned. Women? He would never have thought that this time he dispatched to deal with the Luo family's Hefengshan Renma, even a famous woman led the team. Is it because there are only 4 people left in the Luo family? Zhuo Fan shook his head helplessly and continued to read. I saw that the man in black took off the black hood on his head, revealing a pair of bright double pupils, a black and beautiful hair hanging down like a waterfall, skin like gelatin, blown and broken. It was a rare beauty. Even if the subordinates saw it, they could not help swallowing, and their eyes were straight. They didn't hurry to bow their heads until the woman stared at them fiercely. Xiao Kui, bring a pen and paper. Without a word, the woman shouted, and the little girl hurriedly presented the pen, ink and paper inkstone. The woman raised her sleeves and sketched carefully on the paper with a pen, but within a quarter of an hour, she drew a picture of the house. Zhuo Fan saw it and could not help but praise it. The picture on the picture is the structural layout of Qianlong Pavilion, and it is exactly the same. It took only one night to draw such a picture, and Zhuo Fan had to give her a thumbs up. It seems that the action of Haifeng Mountain to let this woman lead the team is not untargeted. You are optimistic. This is the structure of the courtyard. Here, and here, there are heavy soldiers guarding. In these four corners, there are masters of forging bones sitting in the town. The women in black explained the defense of the small courtyard to the big men. After everything was finished, the big men looked at each other, and their faces were all dignified. "Miss, this is Qianlong Pavilion. How do we get in?" Looking at this posture, we might have died at the door before we even entered the door. A big man wiped the cold sweat on his forehead, and he was genuinely worried. Indifferently waving the hand, the woman said lightly, "Relax, brother has contacted the people of Ghost Valley. Then they will find an excuse to lead the guards away." By then, we rushed in, killing Guangluo's family, grabbing Luo Yunsheng. What? Catching the elder lady? She is not a man. What is the catching lady doing? Zhuo Fan felt inexplicable, but did not worry. Even without those guards, the 9-day panlong array he had arranged a few days ago is still there. These prawns and crabs are coming, but they are just for death. What made him care was what the relationship between Haifeng Mountain and Nether Valley was. Like the Kai family, it is only used, there is still a deeper combination. "Ah, miss, you may not like to listen to some words, but it is about the lives of the brothers. Say." Waving her hand, the woman was very arrogant. After hesitating for a while, the man said solemnly, "Miss, what is the relationship between the Shia's High Lord and Nether Valley? Will the people of Nether Valley listen to him? Even if the people of Nether Valley are willing to help us, but Qianlong Pavilion is after all imperial, the 7th family, offended that they would be useless to run to the end of the world. Will the Nether Valley help us? If they abandon us, then we will really be dead. After all, you are just afraid of death." With a cold snort, the woman said angrily, "Are you saying this today? Are you worthy of the old master? In order to heal the old master's injury, and revenge for the old master, what is it, even if you fight this life?" Hearing these words, everyone unconsciously lowered their heads, their faces ashamed. The woman glanced coldly at everyone and shouted, "Withdraw, everything will proceed as planned, and there must be no objections." "Yes." The crowd clenched their fists, shouted, and resounded like Hongzhong, and retreated respectfully. It's just that when they left, they no longer hesitated, but regarded death as their home. "There is a set." Zhuo Fan raised his eyebrows, slowly stood up, opened the door, and flew out. Now it's his turn. In the inn room, after everyone left, the little girl clapped her hands and smiled. "Miss is so powerful, she really has the style of a mountain owner." Shaking her head, the woman couldn't help but sigh, as sorrow flashed in her eyes. "If a righteous father is healthy, his momentum is much stronger than me, which dare to be convinced on the Black Wind Mountain. There will not be so many doubts." How come they still convinced the lady? The little girl hurried to comfort. With a bitter smile, the woman in black shook her head. "Xiao Kui, don't comfort me. I only hope that after this trip, you can get back to the Dragon Palm and heal the wound of your righteous father. Miss is so filial, her wish will come true." The little girl smiled slightly, her eyes bent into crescents. The woman in black met and laughed with relief. However, at this moment, a faint sigh came into the ears of the two. "Little girl, filial piety and fulfillment of wishes are two different things. Also, who tells you that healing can be done by returning the dragon palm? Who?" The woman in black and Xiaokui turned their heads urgently to look at the source of the sound. I saw that Zhuo Fan was sitting at the window and looked at them with a smile. The two don't have to panic. I didn't mean to the two. I just wanted to invite the two to take a trip and figure out some things. Zhuo Fan smiled slightly and extended a hand friendly. Who are you? The woman in black took Xiaoqui backward 2 steps back, her face full of warning. She didn't find out how Zhuo Fan came to her quietly. If this person killed her, she was already a dead body. Oh, I haven't introduced myself yet. Zhuo Fan respectfully saluted and smiled, the housekeeper in Xiaoyuo, Zhuo Fan. What, are you from the Luo family? Hearing his words, the black eyes of the woman in black shrunk sharply, her teeth clenched, since the Luo family, die. As soon as the words fell, the woman in black suddenly raised her and poked at Zhuo Fan. The piercing thunder sounded suddenly, caught between the fingers, as if to pierce the sky. The pupil of the eye slightly shrank, Zhuo Fan said with a shock. Gathering Kai is ninefold, spiritual order martial art? He would never have thought that this girl actually had Qjiuzheng's cultivation practice, and the martial arts were even the spirit level. With such strength, even if you encounter the forging bone realm, there is a power to fight. It's a pity that she met Zhuo Fan today, and Zhuo Fan disregarded it below the forging bone realm. Because he has natal blood babies. The ink tactic was printed in his hand, and a red light flew out of his body instantly and entered the woman's body. Squeak! The body of the woman in black is suddenly stopped, and only the light of the fingertips is still zizzy. The woman in black looked at Zhuo Fan in horror. You. What have you done to me? The corner of the mouth curled up in a strange arc, and Zhuo Fan shook his head. He did nothing, but controlled your body. With that said, Zhuo Fan grabbed a finger before his 2 fingers. Destroy. In an instant, the sharp thunder went out instantly. Blood babies live on blood and can control human blood. Once the blood gas is controlled, everything in the body will be controlled. Unless you have super strength, you can use Yuanli to break free. However, this is also in the case of weak blood infants. If it is a holy blood boy, even an emperor-level master is difficult to cope with. Follow me. Zhuo Fan grabbed the waist of the black woman in one hand and picked her up. A woman in black has no way to resist and can only be taken into arms by a strange man. Miss. Xiaoqui shouted. Zhuo Fan looked back, as if remembering something. Oh, and you. As soon as the words fell, Zhuo Fan shot again, grabbed her shoulder with a paw, and with a hard hand, the girl fainted. After all, Xiaoqui is just a maid, and Zhuo Fan has easily subdued, before she can break through the gathering atmosphere. So, when it was just dawning, Zhuo Fan hurried to the courtyard with 2 women, one big and one small. Chapter 28, Interrogation, Call Out. As soon as the sky was bright, Zhuo Fan returned to the small courtyard with a beautiful young woman in one hand. The guards of Qianlong Pavilion met, first a little stunned, because the Zhuo steward had disappeared from the silhouette for more than 10 days, and then a smile of understanding appeared. Some people even laughed aloud. Zhuo Butler, I worked hard last night. Long Kui just passed by, saw Zhuo Fan, and glanced at the 2 flowery women in his hand, frowning slightly, rolling a despised white eye, and strode away, as if he had not seen him. But his mouth was muttering, all men are the same. Knowing that they had misunderstood themselves, Zhuo Fan didn't care. He took the 2 women into his room, threw them on the ground, closed the door, and took a chair. Ouch! Xiaoqui was awakened by the pain on the ground, rubbing her sorrowful eyes and looking around. Where is this? When she saw the woman in black beside her, she exclaimed, Miss, what's wrong with you? The woman in black was lying straight on the ground, still immobile, and her slender body was completely presented in front of Zhuo Fan. With a chuckle, Zhuo Fan moved his finger, and the woman in black immediately regained her freedom. At this moment, she saw her jump up suddenly, reach for her ankle, an inexplicably dagger in her hand, and immediately swept across Zhuo Fan's neck. However, with a squeak sound, the dagger stopped a centimeter from Zhuo Fan's neck, and the woman in black stood still again. With a chuckle, Zhuo Fan nodded appreciatively, "Good skill, but it's useless in front of me. I invited the two to just ask a few questions, and there's no malicious intent. As long as you answer honestly, I will meet later. Let go of you. Also, such a weapon is better not to be revealed in front of me." With a chuckle, Zhuo Fan took the dagger away from the black woman's hand and then looked at the protruding body, smiling. "Oh, you don't have any dangerous things hidden in you." With that said, Zhuo Fan was going to search. The woman in black had a red cheek and anxiously said, "Dare you?" The outstretched hand stopped abruptly. Zhuo Fan looked at the black woman's eyes and shook his head with a smile. "Dare I dare? It depends on whether you match or not." As soon as the voice fell, Zhuo Fan suddenly looked sullen and said sharply, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The woman in black turned her head away and did not answer. "Ah." Without hesitation, Zhuo Fan pulled his hand, and the black belt around the waist of the black woman fell to the ground. "What?" With a scream, the woman in black was angry, and her eyes were spurting fire, staring fiercely at Zhuo Fan, but Zhuo Fan was unmoved at all. Seeing this, Xiaoqui rushed up, and a small pink fist slammed into Zhuo Fan. "Villain, do you dare to be rude to Our Lady?" With a snapping sound, Zhuo Fan grabbed it easily, the other hand pulled smoothly, and the ribbon around Xiaoqi's waist slowly slipped. Xiaoqi didn't know that she was shocked. She hurriedly stepped back, while covering her clothes, her eyes were already full of tears. Zhuo Fan's face did not fluctuate, and he still asked lightly, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" He gritted his teeth fiercely, and the woman in black pursed her lips, still saying nothing. Tear. The black coat of the woman in black was torn into pieces by Zhuo Fan. Zhuo Fan looked at her sad face and said coldly, "Who are you? What are you doing in the Wind City?" Zhuo Fan's coldness, like a machine without feelings, made a little fear in the black woman's heart. Finally, the teeth of the woman in black were loosened. "I am the righteous daughter of Haifeng Mountain, Lei Yuding. This time I came to the city to get rid of your Luo family." How to get rid of it? Zhuo Fan's face was as if it had nothing to do with himself. This made Lei Yuding even more worried, as if she was facing now, she was not alone. "Ghost Valley will attract people from Qianlong Pavilion. We took the opportunity to break into here." Zhuo Fan nodded with satisfaction after listening. In fact, he already knew these things and asked them again, just to break through the defense of this woman. Next, that's what he wants to know. What is your relationship with Ghost Valley, and what are the benefits of helping them? Shaking his head, Lei Yuding's eyes showed a little confused. "I don't know." Zhuo Fan stared closely at her eyes, knowing that she was not lying, and then asked, "How did you get in touch with Ghost Valley? Who is pulling the line?" Lei Yuding's eyes fluctuated unconsciously, but he bit his lips tightly and made no noise. Zhuo Fan actually guessed a rough idea in his heart, but still wanted to get the exact answer, so he tore off the shirt inside Lei Yuding. Suddenly, Lei Yuding's beautiful kitten body was exposed to Zhuo Fan's eyes, and only a red cloth embroidered with mandarin ducks on his chest played the final role. Biting his red lips tightly, the teardrops in Lei Yuding's eyes rolled down one by one without a word. Zhuo Fan slowly put his hand in front of the clothes on her chest and said coldly, "You are beautiful, This is your last chance to maintain dignity. If you don't answer again, besides me, there may be dozens outside a hungry man. Asshole. Lei Yuding grunted his teeth. Ignoring her scolding, Zhuo Fan said coldly. I only count 3, 1, 2. As Zhuo Fan's voice sounded, Zhuo Fan's hand holding the red cloth became more and more tight. Lei Yuding bit his lip tightly, as if he was about to bite bleeding. His eyes were tears, but he kept silent. Okay, there is a kind. Zhuo Fan nodded, his hands tight, just about to force. Xiaoqui screamed and said anxiously. No, please don't bully the young lady anymore. It's all handled by Brother Yang by contacting Yu Gingu. Who is Brother Yang? Zhuo Fan's mouth twitched and smiled evilly. Lei Yuding wanted to yell to stop Xiaoqui, but Zhuo Fan's finger ticked, and she couldn't speak anymore. Xiaoqui glanced at the humiliated young lady, and honestly explained. Brother Yang is a close disciple of the mountain owner, named Yang Ming. Under the mountain owner's cooperation, she and the younger got married. But on the same day, the mountain owner was secretly attacked by Luo Zhenin, the owner of the Luo family, and seriously injured. His body was paralyzed and he could not speak, so you attacked the Luo family? Zhuo Fan's lips twitched, and he smiled with satisfaction. What's not to say about killing people to repay their lives, revenge and hatred? What next? Zhuo Fan continued to ask. Xiaoqui hesitated for a while, and when she saw Zhuo Fan's hand still resting on Lei Yuding's chest, she immediately said. The Luo family is guarded and solemn, we are not sure. Fortunately, Brother Yang has great powers and contacted the Luo family's son housekeeper. We can cooperate inside and outside to defeat the Luo family. Later, Miss Luo family ran away, and we never knew her whereabouts. Recently, Brother Yang got the news, knowing that you are here, and also contacted the people of Ghost Valley to help. All right. Zhuo Fan waved his hand, and everything was clear in his heart. His eyes flashed, looking at Xiaoqui Road. How do you know that the mountain owner was attacked by Luo Zhenin? Did you see it with your own eyes? Brother Yang saw it. So, Heilongzhang can heal the mountain's injury, which is what Brother Yang said. Zhuo Fan raised his brow, Xiaoqui nodded fiercely with his big eyes open. There was a surprise in his eyes, as if to say how you knew. All things were clear to the chest. Zhuo Fan slowly took the hand on Lei Yuding's chest. However, at this moment, a light drink suddenly sounded. Zhuo Fan, what are you doing in the house? As soon as the words fell, Luo Yuncheng pushed the door in, followed by Luo Yunhai and Pang. As soon as they saw the scene in the room, the three were shocked. The two young and beautiful girls were in disorganized clothes, and Zhuo Fan's salty pig hands were still on his half-chest. Luo Yunhai saw it, his mouth widened in shock, but a pair of smart eyes kept turning. Suddenly covering his eyes, Luo Yunsheng shouted to Pang, Commander, hurry and take Master back to the room. Commander Pang nodded hurriedly, and took Luo Yunhai away, but before leaving, he gave Zhuo Fan a wretched smile that a man could understand. Zhuo Butler. Luo Yunsheng was furious, and actually called Zhuo Fan's identity. This is the place of Qianlong Pavilion after all. How can you come here so wildly in other people's places? Indifferently shrugging, Zhuo Fan said lightly, I did this for the Luo family. For the Luo family? Luo Yunsheng was very angry and smiled. You took two women who were not good at home, and they messed up all night. You said it was for the Luo family? Didn't you say you want to become stronger? Did you surpass the 7th family in 10 years? Did you do that? Zhuo Fan couldn't help but be amazed. Luo Yunsheng was always dignified and virtuous. He could maintain his manners, even when he was angry. How could he be so angry today, and lose his usual style? Shaking his head helplessly, Zhuo Fan said lightly, "If you know who they are, you won't say that." Hearing this, Luo Yuncheng looked at Zhuo Fan suspiciously. "They are the female thieves of Haifeng Mountain. I was just interrogating them." Zhuo Fan looked at the two women with disheveled clothes and sneered. "Even if it is a thief, this method is still for women. Most effective. What? They are from Black Wind Mountain." Not paying attention to Zhuo Fan's back words, Luo Yunsheng heard his words Black Wind Mountain, his eyes turned red, and the whole body's strength exploded in an instant, hitting Lei Yuding with a palm. "Return my father's life." Snapped. Zhuo Fan grabbed her soft pancreas with one hand and said lightly, "You calm down. I think the grudge between Haifeng Mountain and Luo family is not that simple. Maybe all this is a ghost of the imperial family of 7th generation." "What?" After listening to Zhuo Fan's words, Luo Yunsheng froze for a moment, and Lei Yuding and Xiaoqui turned to look at him, their eyes full of surprise. Whether Luo family or Haifeng Mountain, in the eyes of the royal family Vai, the ants are not as good as this small family. If you want to deal with them, it can be wiped out without any effort. Why do you want to take such a big circle?" Zhuo Fan also couldn't figure this out. With a finger, Lei Yuding regained his ability to move. "Miss Lei, I have a ruthless request." Zhuo Fan respectfully saluted, said lightly, "I think you will take me to Haifeng Mountain for a trip. I want to find out the whole story." "Ha, if you want to mix into our Black Wind Mountain, there are no doors." Lei Yuding snorted coldly and said angrily. Zhuo Fan smiled slightly, looked at Luo Yuncheng and said, "Miss, please give me the practice of returning to the dragon palm." "What are you doing?" Luo Yuncheng asked, but still took a jade from the ring and handed it over. If this martial art is wanted by others, she absolutely can't bear it. However, as Zhuo Fan's 5th level formation division, she will never indulge her spirit level martial skills. Handing the JJ to Lei Yuding, Zhuo Fan smiled and said, "Miss Lei, this is the Weilong palm you want. But this is just a martial art that cannot cure your mountain owner's injury. I only invite you to take me to the Black Wind, look at the mountain and find out the truth. Maybe Yang Ming has been lying to you. Otherwise, both Luo family and Haifeng Mountain will wipe out the clan and the grudges of the 7th family this time. Brother Yang is a good person and won't lie to us." Xiao Kui raised his head anxiously. Ignoring her, Zhuo Fan only looked at Lei Yuding. "Yang Ming can easily take the housekeeping policies of the Luo family for decades, and he can easily establish a relationship with the Ghost Valley of the imperial family of 7. Girl, as his fiancé, do you really know him?" After hesitating for a while, Lei Yuding lobbied through Zhuo Fan, and his heart was instantly filled with doubt. Lei Yuding looked at Zhuo Fan, stroking the jade of Weilong palm in his hand, and nodded slightly. Now that others have given him the heirloom martial arts back to Longzhang, there are so many doubts about these kinds of incidents, and there is no reason to refuse him. Moreover, Black Wind Mountain is her site, and Zhuo Fan has only one person. Forgive him for no tricks. Seeing her promise, Zhuo Fan nodded in satisfaction. However, after a while, he coughed awkwardly, cough. "Girl Lei, watch out for the cold." "What?" At this moment, Lei Yuding only reacted. Her clothes had been torn by the evil housekeeper in front of her, and she could only hurry to block her body with some broken steps. Luo Yunsheng, together with Xiaoqui, pushed Zhuo Fan out of the door. "Go away." The door closed, and the three girls looked at each other with a smirk. But soon realized that before things were clear, they were still enemies, so they collapsed again. At this time, Zhuo Fan's voice sounded outside the door, "Miss Lei, remember to wear more clothes next time, and you can hold it for a while." Hearing this remark, Lei Yuding was embarrassed, with angry flames in his eyes and his face flushed. Chapter 29. Dive into the Black Wind Mountain. Between the tree-lined trails, a woman in black walks side by side with an old man in a daze. The woman is tall and looks like a kyonghua, and the fragrance is overflowing from line to line, attracting bees and butterflies. The old man's temples were white, and there was a strand of goatee on his chin, but the hazy old eyes flashed from time to time. The two came to the foot of a mountain, and the woman looked at the top of the mountain in the distance, and looked at the old man beside her, but there was a slight anger in her tone. "Zhuo Fan, you'd better be honest. If you let me see that you have a trace of intent against Haifeng Mountain, I will not let you go." Haha. Miss Lei is assured that the old is here to find out the truth, not to get revenge. Besides, what can I do alone? The old man shook his head and shook his head. With a cold snort, Lei Yuding didn't go to see him and walked straight forward. "Also, if Xiaoqui hurt a hair, I won't let you go." "Relax, I took Xiaoqui as a hostage. First, because we still can't trust each other, I always have to keep a trick to protect myself. Secondly," Zhuo Fan gave her a deep look, mysteriously. "That's also for you. Good for me?" Lei Yuding looked at Zhuo Fan suspiciously, but Zhuo Fan shook his head and stopped talking, leaving only Lei Yuding in doubt. In this way, the two continued up the mountain side by side, without much talk along the way. Until he reached the middle of the mountainside, he met the first level of Haifeng Mountain. "Who?" A big man in black jumped out and stopped the two of them. But when he saw it was Lei Yuding, he immediately respected it and shrank it. "Ah, it turns out that the lady is back. Didn't you go to Fenglinching? Why? Come back to do something." Lei Yuding raised his proud cheek without looking at the man and walked straight up the mountain. "This man is that Yang Ming." Suddenly, Zhuo Fan said, "You told me that it is a very secret thing to go to Fenglin City to carry out your mission. How could a little guardian of the mountain know this?" Unconsciously, Lei Yuding thought of Zhuo Fan's words and frowned slightly. Originally, she believed in Brother Yang Ming, but she was reminded by Zhuo Fan these days, and she recalled many unusual things. Just like the current man who keeps the mountain knows her movements, she would never take it seriously before, but now it is full of doubts. "Look at it, when we go up the mountain, Yang Ming will go out to greet him." Zhuo Fan smirked, and his pace accelerated a lot. Lei Yuding looked at Zhuo Fan's back, and there was a contradiction in his heart, but he hurried to keep up. Soon, the two passed a few levels and finally came to the top of the mountain. The Xiamen of Haifeng Mountain suddenly appeared in front of him. Because Lei Yuding led the way and Zhuo Fan, who was dressed as an old man, no one asked him his identity at all, and he was completely let go. However, when the two were about to enter, a personal figure suddenly appeared inside the Xiamen. This man is 7 feet tall and handsome, but with a handsome smile on his handsome face. Zhuo Fan only saw at a glance that he must be Yang Ming. "Look, your whereabouts have been reported completely." Zhuo Fan raised an eyebrow to Lei Yuding, as if he had bet on the child who won the game. But Lei Yuding had no intention of joking with him, and his face became more and more dignified. Along the way, Zhuo Fan had already told her his conjecture, especially about Yang Ming, who might be the dark child of Nether Valley in Haifeng Mountain. Lei Yuding was originally unwilling to believe that this was true. After all, this man was the man whose righteous father had engaged in engagement for her. It is difficult for her to believe that a man who allows everyone, including his righteous father, to trust so much, will be someone who has been inserted to use the destruction of Haifeng Mountain. But what I saw and heard along the way, They all coincided with what Zhuo Fan said. With a slight bite of Zhu lip, Lei Yuding looked at Yang Ming with a somewhat complicated look, but he walked up with a scalp. Sister Yuding, shouldn't you be in Fenglan City? Why did you come back suddenly? Yang Ming smiled slightly, stepped forward to meet, turned to Zhuo Fan, and asked, "This is?" Lei Yuding hesitated for a moment, and tentatively said, "Senior brother, Qianlong Pavilion is indeed not easy to mess with, and the people in Ghost Valley are unreliable. This action is too risky, so I let them stay in the force for a while and watch the changes." Hearing this, Yang Ming's face changed unconsciously, and Zhuo Fan could even clearly see the murderous intention deep in his eyes. "Sister Yuding, Master treats us with great gratitude. For his elderly, even if it is a sacrifice of life, how can we be so greedy and afraid of death? Moreover, how can Master's hatred not be reported? Of course I am clear, it's just." Lei Yuding frowned and gritted his teeth. "We can't ignore the lives of our brothers. This is a second-grade alchemist I found. If he can save his righteous father, then we can wait for the revenge of our righteous father after he is injured." At this time, Zhuo Fan quickly stepped forward and arched his hands, laughing, "Ha ha ha. The old man is in the rivers and lakes, and he cures all diseases. Any trauma and internal injuries, incurable diseases, the old man is cured by the disease. Ha, if you really have such a skill, you will have been supported by the family, and you still cheat everywhere like now." Yang Ming didn't wait for Zhuo Fan to finish blowing the cow. He waved his sleeves and said angrily, "Sister and sister, those injured by Weilong Palm can only be cured by Weilong Palm. Don't you believe in being a brother?" Hearing this sentence, Lei Yuding thought of all the past events with Yang Ming, and he couldn't help but hesitate for a moment. Zhuo Fan hurried to stand up again, stood between the two, looked at Yang Ming and said, "Little brother, give me a chance, I am really good at healing." "Roll." Yang Ming was furious and called with a palm. Zhuo Fan could clearly feel the fierceness of the palm wind, but he dared not hide, so he had to grit his teeth and took him a hard palm. Bump. He didn't use any martial arts, but when he first entered the bone-forging realm, he hit him firmly in the heart. He immediately shot him 10 meters away and spit out a blood. "If you don't let it cure, you won't be cured. Why did you hit someone?" Zhuo Fan stood on the ground and stood up with difficulty. He spit out another blood. "The old man is so old that he can't bear a few palms. Girl, I can't take over your business. The thief's business is really difficult to do." "What did you say?" Yang Ming's face was angry, and he raised his palm again, but was stopped by Lei Yuding in a hurry. "This gentleman was invited by me. If you want to hit him, hit me first. Well, if you love him, let him rule it. If this kind of rivers and lakes ruined Master, I would never let you go." Yang Ming flicked his sleeve and walked inwardly, no longer looking. Lei Yuding glanced. Lei Yuding felt aggrieved and came to Zhuo Fan angrily, glaring at him. "It's all because of you, brother, he ignored me. I shouldn't have believed you, brother. He cares so much about his righteous father. Why? Maybe it hurts the righteous father? Miss Lei, didn't your righteous father teach you how to recognize people?" Zhuo Fan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and chuckled lightly, "But yes, he said it himself." Lei Yuding was stunned, his face puzzled. "Look at people, not what he says, but what he does." Zhuo Fan twitched his lips and smiled wickedly. "Just now he didn't let me cure, but he didn't know my strength. But after he tried his palm, he felt that my strength was not good, and he let me cure again." "You said, he is it good for your righteous father?" Unconsciously, Lei Yuding recalled what he had just done, removed all Yang Ming's words, and only thought about his actions. Sure enough, everything is the same as Zhuo Fan said. Even when Yang Ming left her sleeve, she seemed to see his seemingly absent smile. Could it be that? Thinking of this, Lei Yuding dared not think about it again. Because she continued to think about it, her heart might be very painful. Maybe she would not be able to control herself, and asked Yang Ming. By then, both of them will die here. Seeing everything in his eyes, Zhuo Fan limped up and patted her on the shoulder. Come on, let me see your righteous father's injury. You are a liar, just acting, just go watch it. Lei Yuding couldn't help but toss his lips, his voice was a little choked. Zhuo Fan laughed and shrugged indifferently. Even if you act, you have to perform a full set. Moreover, the show is not over yet. As soon as the voice fell, Zhuo Fan walked straight in. Lei Yuding took a deep breath and followed closely. Although in front, it was a scene she didn't want to see. The two walked all the way, hundreds of eyes around them staring at them. At this moment, Lei Yuding felt that these eyes made her so uncomfortable. The eyes that were admired on weekdays, but at this time it looked like a pair of surveillance eyes. When the two came to the main house of the mountain, they walked in the door and saw that Yang Ming had already arrived. With a bowl of porridge in his hands, he fed the spoonful to the elderly who could not move at all on the bed. Jiang liar, if my master has any problems, you are the only one asking. Seeing the two coming, Yang Ming placed the porridge bowl on the table fiercely, glaring at the two angrily and sat aside, giving way to the head of the bed. Zhuo Fan laughed under his heart and slowly came to the old man's bed to check on his injury. However, when he put his on the veins of the old man and input Yuan Li to check, it was slightly stunned. Then everything was clear to the chest. Let the teacher have no trauma. Zhuo Fan shook his head and said quietly. Helplessly rolled his eyes, Yang Ming sneered contemptuously. Ha, do you still use this? But the commander has no internal injuries. His eyes shrank slightly, and when Zhuo Fan's words fell, Yang Ming's hands tightened. Originally, he thought that Zhuo Fan was only gathering energy and doing 4 things. He didn't have any skills, but he didn't expect that the old man was diagnosed by him without trauma and internal injuries. In an instant, Yang Ming's killing intention flashed in his eyes. No trauma, no internal injuries, how can my uncle be silent? Lei Yuding didn't believe Zhuo Fan would diagnose, always thought he was acting, but you should act like a little. No injuries, how do you explain that a strong bone forging master will suddenly become like this? Zhuo Fan touched his nose, an inexplicable smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and said lightly, the old doctor of the master's illness has found it, it is a foreign body. Snapped. Unexpectedly, a corner of the table was broken by Yang Ming. The old man on the bed looked at Zhuo Fan, but his eyes widened fiercely. Desperately want to say something, but it is speechless. But the excitement is more than words. Chapter 30, Madly Slaughter, a lot of nonsense. Yang Ming came to Zhuo Fan aggressively, pulling him away, pulling him straight. Lei Yuding couldn't help but see it. Why did Yang Ming have such a big reaction? Brother, what's wrong with you? His eyes narrowed. Yang Ming turned to look at Lei Yuding, said coldly, Sister, do you have anything to hide from me? Lei Yuding was startled, hesitated for a moment, then shook his head fiercely. Chan smiled and said, How come? Looking at everything in her eyes, Yang Ming's mouth could not help lifting an evil arc. Sister, you and I have been together for so long, you never lie to me. Of course. Somehow, looking at Yang Ming's smile, Lei Yuding suddenly felt a sense of danger. This feeling, as if a viper was watching you, made her take 2 steps back unconsciously. With a cold smile, a decisive color flashed in Yang Ming's eyes. Sister, how about your little girl, Xiao Kui? I let her do something. Lei Yuding stammered. Oh. Yang Ming nodded leisurely, but at the next moment, his eyes flashed with poison, and with a shoe, he hit with a palm. Before Lei Yuding could react, he was hit the chest and flew out. A bloodline floats in the air. Immediately after that, Yang Ming pressed a bump on the head of the bed. A big hole appeared immediately on the floor of the room, and Lei Yuding suddenly fell into it. Seeing this, Zhuo Fan pretended to be frightened and hurried out. But Yang Ming was quick and fast, grabbed his neck with one hand, and threw his hand into that big hole. Then the organ was pressed again, and the hole slowly closed. The ground leveled again, as if there had never been a cave underground. The old man on the bed watched the two fall into the trap, and could not help but shake their whole body, but they were helpless. Bump! Lei Yuding fell into the dark cave, his body aches. But at this moment, another shout sounded, and a giant boomed on her, causing her to spit out a bit of blood again. I didn't expect this kid to set up an office here. Zhuo Fan slowly climbed up, grabbed the softness of his grip, and murmured, however, the ground is quite soft. Ah! Jerk, get off me immediately. Suddenly, a harsh scream came into his ear. Zhuo Fan looked down, only to find that he was lying on Lei Yuding's body. And his two hands happened to press on her chest by accident. Unexpectedly, Zhuo Fan hurriedly got up and embarrassedly said, "Sorry, unexpected accident." Lei Yuding was flushed, but he had no time to worry about him. At this moment, she has understood everything. So she immediately stood up and shouted upwards, "Yang Ming, it turns out that everything is really you who are fooling." Ha ha ha. Above the hole, across the hard stone slabs, Yang Ming's rampant laughter sounded. "Sister, this time you go back to the mountain, I feel wrong. What else do you bring a second-rank alchemist? Sure enough, you have begun to doubt me. Why are you doing this? Your uncle is not so kind to you." Lei Yuding grieved, heartbroken and shouted. With a cold smile, Yang Ming said lightly, "I have my purpose here, how this old man doesn't matter to me at all. Originally, I didn't want to shoot you so early, I didn't expect you to find such an alchemist, bad plan for me. What, you really didn't let me go?" Hearing this, Lei Yuding slowly shed tears in 2 lines. He couldn't help but spit it out, not because of the palm he just had, but because of his broken heart. Zhuo Fan looked aside, shook his head helplessly, without any pity in his heart. Who can blame this, can only blame his own eyes. However, Zhuo Fan still plays the role of a river and lake liar. "Little brother, you have settled any grievances, I am innocent, let me go." Hearing this, Yang Ming couldn't help laughing. "Haha. You old scammer, if you really have nothing to bear, it doesn't matter if I kill you or not. Unfortunately, who made you diagnose the cause of the old man?" "Cause? What's the cause? I just think he hasn't moved for many years, and the body has too much toxin to accumulate. I want to give him a clean bowel to try." Zhuo Fan groaned incomparably. "My age is why do n'apostrophe you come out for a meal?" The corner of his mouth twitched unconsciously, and Yang Ming had no choice but to touch his forehead. His mother misunderstood. Originally, Yang Ming thought that the old man really had 2 brushes, and after seeing his hands and feet, he didn't expect it to be a lie. Originally, this age is just a 4-fold cultivation practice, what can you do? Yang Ming shook his head helplessly, knowing that he wouldn't need to do so in a hurry. Now he was using Lei Yuding to do things, he had to go out in person. Damn scammer, pretending to be a big event for spoiling Laozi. Yang Ming snorted and said fiercely, "When Laozi finishes the business, come back and clean up both of you. Come here, Stay here, no one can enter. Yes. At the order of Yang Ming, 2 thieves immediately stood at the door, and Zhuo Fan heard the footsteps of Yang Ming when he left. Hey, little brother, there is something wrong with pretending. Don't you rely on this trick to eat mixed rice on the rivers and lakes? Hey, let me go, I'm innocent. Zhuo Fan yelled a few more times, but none of them responded, making sure that he really left. Turning her head to look at Lei Yuding, she saw that she was sitting on the ground paralyzed, her eyes blank, but her heart was dead. After all, it was the fiancé who appointed the marriage contract, and in a blink of an eye became a hatred. What's more, this man can kill himself without hesitation. Any woman who puts it on this will die of heart. Taking a deep look at Lei Yuding, Zhuo Fan touched the fake goatee on his chin and said quietly, "You and our young lady's situation is quite similar. In the future, you can exchange your experience to prevent being caught." Throw it again. In the future? It's a question whether we can go out alive now. Where will we come from? Lei Yuding said coldly without looking at him. With a chuckle, Zhuo Fan's face was filled with a confident smile. Everything is working according to the old man's plan, rest assured, we can go out at night. Of course, if you are looking for death, you can kill yourself now. Now. Glancing at him fiercely, Lei Yuding said angrily, "Even if I die, I will definitely pull you back." Zhuo Fan smiled, shook his head recklessly, and slowly closed his eyes, waiting for the late night to come. Lei Yuding pouted, and no longer looked at him. But somehow, after a fight with Zhuo Fan, her mood actually improved a lot, and her heartache gradually faded. Late at night, the crescent moon hangs high in the sky, most of the bandits on the Black Wind Mountain fall asleep, and only dozens of people take turns to guard. In the dark lacquered cave, Zhuo Fan leaned against the stone wall, suddenly opened his eyes, and a wicked smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Lei Yuding was still lying on the ground, sleeping quietly. Without waking her up, Zhuo Fan tickled his finger, and with a red light flashed a few times on Lei Yuding, and suddenly flew out, coming to Zhuo Fan. That is the blood infant. Even if an agreement was reached with Lei Yuding, Zhuo Fan would not believe her completely. So he made 2 preparations, one was to hold Xiaoqui as a hostage, and the other was to keep the blood infant in her body. If she has any changes, resolve them immediately. Fortunately, Lei Yuding has been very cooperative, but at this moment, the blood infant has a greater role. Like a child who had been missing for a long time suddenly found his father, the blood infant was very intimate with Zhuo Fan, rubbing against his cheek from time to time. Zhuo Fan smiled slightly, and suddenly a crazy killing intention appeared in his eyes, and his finger pointed outwards. The blood infant who understood with him fully understood what he meant, and immediately turned into a red light to rush outward. The layers of stone slab couldn't stop its pace, and passed through instantly. The forest in the middle of the night is very quiet. The thieves lay in the house, dreaming sweetly. Suddenly, a flash of red light flashed by, and they instantly penetrated into their bodies, and then went out again. With a smile on his head, I didn't know what a sweet dream was, and then he turned to the side, and he lost his breath. The blood baby's speed was terrifying, and just over a dozen people across the room with just one breath. After it flew out, the whole room was no longer alive. In this way, the blood babies flew all over the Black Wind Mountain, quietly taking everyone's life, and finally came to the house, where the mountain owner was. There, 2 thieves are guarding with due diligence. Call out. A ray of red light went straight into the body of one guard, and the other guard saw it, and couldn't help but be shocked. Something got into your body. The guard was stunned for a while, and didn't know what happened, Zhuo Fan's voice came out of him abruptly. Quickly open the organ and release us. The two guards stared at each other for a moment, startled at each other. Why is the voice of the person locked in the organization coming from his body? However, they haven't waited for them to ask out the situation. With a snap, the guard who had been engulfed by a blood baby quickly shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye, and was finally blown into a pile of ashes by the wind. Immediately afterwards, the red light sprang from the ashes and entered the body of another guard. Suddenly horrified, the guard was so scared that his face was pale and his lips were trembling and speechless. At this moment, Zhuo Fan's voice rang from the body again, "Open the organ and let us out." The voice in the voice was absolutely irresistible, making the guard's legs soft and fell to the ground underneath. "Uncle, don't worry, I'll go straight away," the guard said with a cry. Seeing his own companion turning into fly ash instantly, anyone will be scared and heartbroken. The guard crawled to the machine in tears and pressed the machine. Bang! The stone slab on the head slowly moved away, and the gentle light spilled into the cave. Lei Yuding was awakened by the light and slowly opened her eyes, but saw that the slate above her head had opened. Looking at her side, Zhuo Fan looked at her with her arms around her and said quietly, "If you don't want to die yet, just follow me." With that, he jumped out. Lei Yuding was still amazed. How did Zhuo Fan do it? But when he heard his words, he didn't feel angry and pouted, Do you think I'm dead? I'm not dead." As soon as the words fell, Lei Yuding also jumped in and jumped out.